Welcome to the Heartwork Podcast, where we delve into stories, struggles, and triumphs of entrepreneurship, leadership, and personal growth. I'm Dr. Sara.
And I'm Dr. Marisa. We're here to guide practitioners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and those just navigating the complexities of life on a journey of discovery that explores the dance between passion and strategy, heart and hustle.
With candid conversations, insightful interviews, and plenty of laughs, get ready to uncover how leading with heart can transform your business and life. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode. Today, we want to share with you a question that came through our email, and it really talks about how to handle analysis paralysis when it comes to leading. Like, at what point am I, as the boss and business owner, being who I am at the office too much or crossing a line with openness? And so I replied back and asked this individual if they could go a bit deeper with that. And they pretty much said, so I'm letting my staff in on my own junk. I feel like I've let them in so far that they actually feel entitled to me, and I don't know how to create the boundary now. I think this is something we can all relate to, not only as entrepreneurs, but also if you've been an employee of a business and you have grown in leadership to where now you're actually leading your peers and your coworkers, and where that relationship used to be very friendly and we were all kind of on the same playing field. We're all still part of that team, but now you're having to hold accountability for people, and it's requiring a different level of your capacity, requiring a different level of your ability to navigate personal conversations while also holding a standard of productivity at work, because we are all here to do a job. But especially then as the leader, I think this happens a lot in the phases and the transitions of a business when you maybe are starting up and kind of all from the ground and your time is more available, you can be more present, we're creating bonds, and then all of a sudden more is being required of you as the owner, and your time is more stringent, your capacity is being really stretched in different areas as you continue to wear more hats and you're growing and scaling. And it can get just a little tricky in the sense of, now I'm really trying to make sure I steer this ship, steer it well. And how do we then maintain the balance and the dance of being vulnerable and present with your team while also not necessarily having all the floodgates open at all times?
Yeah, I think boundaries are such a beautiful gift, but understanding when and where to place them, I think, can be a huge challenge. And especially if you don't know what those boundaries look like in your own personal life and within your own heart and what that means for you. So for example, I think I've shared this before, but this will just be relevant for this episode. When I first started my business, I hired a lot of friends and I hired a lot of people that I was doing relational work with outside of the business. I was doing a lot of work with them within our church entity at the same time. And I was also doing a lot of just friend time outside of the business. And so then all of a sudden we had an interesting dynamic that had to shift, and they understood it at the time where I'm ultimately their employer and I'm their boss. However, outside of those hours, I was very much just their friend. Naturally, it's I was their friend. We went to church together. It's we were on equal playing ground outside of our four walls. But then the minute that we went into the four walls, it was a different playing ground. And because of that, it was a very hard situation for me as I navigated what that was like, especially with my first years of business. First years of business, you're also just trying to figure out how to get new patients in the door, how to keep those new patients, how to make sure that you have beautiful profit coming in. And we were very successful very fast. So we grew fast, but that didn't necessarily mean that I understood what it meant to lead my team really healthily. So in turn, I was compromising myself to make sure that my team was taken care of. And so as things were evolving, I really realized that I was caretaking and mothering my team first and foremost to make sure that their paycheck was paid. I wanted to make sure that they had bonuses upon bonuses, that I was getting them coffee, that I was literally paying for their dinner every single time. I would go above and beyond to make sure that they were taken care of, doing the extra things, because it meant that I was then creating a really healthy culture where they not only just, yes, saw me as a friend, however, they also saw me as a really generous leader. And Oh man, did that definitely build up some resentment over the course of time. Oh my gosh. I literally because then eventually, like, what inevitably will happen when this happens is that they are gonna eventually ask something that is out of boundaries and that is out of bounds, and that you feel like you're being taken advantage of. And that you feel like your compassion, your generosity, your financial means is being taken advantage of. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be something big. Like, I remember somebody literally just wanted an extra, like, day coming back from a vacation where they had PTO, like, to use, but they asked me really late, and I'm like, "What? Why would you even ask this? Like, it's literally tomorrow. You haven't, like, given me time to even address this." But I was so frustrated that they would even ask me, but I had allowed it up to that point because it was just something we had done. So and then I became very resentful that people would give me requests, and sometimes it could be literally the simplest of requests, but I was so resentful, and I would get mad and angry, and I'm like, "What the freak is happening?" And so I started to understand, for one, I had asked the question of like, "Well, why have I done this in the first place? What have I created within my business and within my own leadership that has led to the landscape of my leadership and the landscape of the culture of my business?" And a big part of that was I wanted everybody to see me. I wanted everybody to know that I was incredibly generous and powerful. And because I did that, if I took care of everybody else, that they would look at me for part of their security and part of their rhythm of life. And it gave me a lot of power and it gave me a lot of aspect for it to where, in the end of the day, I became almost, like I said, a mother figure in their life instead of a really, really healthy boss. And so when I started actually realizing that, that's when I got to then take the opportunity to say, it's like, okay, what are going to be small steps that I can start to make? I'm not going to like pull the rug out of everybody and myself because that doesn't make sense because I don't even know how to lead there. However, what are some small steps to be able to start to set some boundaries and some healthy boundaries? Honestly, for me, the healthy boundary started with a conversation first. Like, there were a couple individuals I had to have a conversation with and say, "Hey, I'm realizing that I've done this. And for the health of myself, but also for this business, some things are going to need to change." And so that's what this is going to look like. And let's say that it was about the PTO, like it would be like, I need you to request this 30 days in advance. If it's not, then unfortunately, it's not going to be allowed at that point. That's just an easy one to, like an easy example of that. But the first part was definitely a conversation. I had a couple conversations with the whole team, but a lot of them were individual for the sake of individuals they were desiring different things from me, and it wasn't all one big unit at the same time. And I have literally seen this over the course of my whole time too, as like an entrepreneur and as a leader. It's not something that just will go away. Sometimes you're going to learn like, okay, I set these really healthy boundaries. And then in turn, okay, I still need to set some boundaries as I go. One of the things that I really had to navigate then too is because I was such good friends with everybody, I had to realize that I could not hang out with them all the time. A simple boundary came to where I literally, if my whole team was going out to go hang out on let's say they went for lunch or they hung out on the weekends or they went to dinner one night, I would choose to go if it was like a birthday or maybe like an anniversary type thing because we're celebrating that human that actually has something to celebrate. But if it was anything else, unless it was a team office type setting environment, not just a hangout, I had to choose not to go. It was one of those things really had to set a boundary from like friendship wise to boss. And really, if you think about it, a lot of bosses don't always just hang out with their people all the time.
Mhm.
Not saying that you can't, 100%, not saying that you can't, but for me, it was a place where I needed to be able to put some boundaries around what it meant to be a boss versus a friend. Doesn't mean I can't be friendly with you, but it does not necessarily mean I'm your friend. I'm your leader. And I had to come to that realization that at the end of the day, I needed to put some boundaries in place that have really allowed people to know that I am their leader and they're an authority figure, especially in these four walls. And if I'm merging the friendship side of things, it was really challenging. And I will tell you, truly, all these people that were on my team, they are no longer a part of my team. And so that was just a natural maneuver. Pretty much all of them are still patients of mine. They're still in my life. It just is not in the same setting of employer friendship type of relationship any longer. Just a natural, beautiful rhythm of how things can move themselves out. When it comes to the only one of the other things I just do desire to add, I do believe it's really, really, really beneficial to allow for vulnerability to occur within your leadership. And when the question's asking, like, I feel like I've it almost sounds like the person was saying I bled a little bit over my team too much. Like I've given them access to my life, to my heart, to all of that way more than I realized I needed to do. And so they have a lot more access to them, which I understand. I think there's times in my life where I like word vomited out and emotionally gave more than I needed to give, which also I don't think is healthy either because not everybody, for one, has the capacity to handle it or the space to handle it. Or it almost can sound like, okay, well, this person, not saying that you are, but it can almost sound like you're venting and you're like giving more of your life than you necessarily need to. So then it almost, when you do that, you provide opportunity for them to feel like they can do the same and that they want access to you, but they also can do that in their life the same. So one of the things I have been very cognizant of when I speak and who I speak to, when I'm sharing pieces of my life or frustrations in the business or just anything that's happening in the business. And then within my leadership team and within certain meetings that I do, I actually specifically have a place that I hold to where I ask them to come prepared with like, what are you learning in your life every single from this past month? And I share, what am I learning? What am I experiencing in my heart? What am I actually um, processing through? Because for one, it's a safe space. I know these individuals, but also at the same time, like I do want them to understand what I'm experiencing and processing through, but I get to choose what I'm processing, not in a moment of emotion. So I get to come to the table and say, all right, this past month, this is what I've really looked at. Like I've looked at, I mean, this for just an example of this past month, there's been abandonment that has come up for me. There has been this reality of this fire horse season of time where it's like everything is all about momentum movement, but what it means to me. And so I got to share a lot about what that was processing for me. And then I invite them, they don't have to answer. I don't need them to like give me anything in response. I'm just sharing a piece of my heart and piece of myself in that moment. And then I ask them to share what they're experiencing as well from this past month. And it's a moment of just beautiful vulnerability. It takes literally about 10 minutes. It's not even that long. It does not need to be long. It's not like you're sitting and you're like sitting with coffee with a friend and you're literally spilling all your secrets. Like this is not meant to be that. It's literally meant to be an opportunity just to share something that you've understood about yourself and how you are processing it and what is you don't have to have an end date on it or an actual transformation on it yet, but it's what you are going through and what you're navigating, the opportunity with that. And that has been a brilliant just exercise to still allow vulnerability, but there still has a boundary around it at the same time.
I love how you're sharing from a point of just sharing a piece, not necessarily vomiting it all out. And there's also, you're not looking to that person to necessarily help you solve that. I think that's too where we can get sticky is when we do kind of vent or like share a problem. And we might have people on our team that are very solution oriented. And it can feel kind of icky because now you have people offering you solutions and advice. And you're like, I don't know that I really like wanted the solution or
Mhm.
advice. I was just vomiting. I don't know that I should have been vomiting with that situation now. And I also appreciated how you shared, like, a lot of those people aren't necessarily on your team anymore. And I've navigated that same situation. And I've also navigated when you do feel like you have people that are connected to you and that you went through a season of life with, or you feel some more like blending of the boundaries with, and then they do decide to move on because that's just the natural rhythm of their life and season. And if you don't have that level of boundary, in the sense of how the business works. There was a time where I had team turnover and I felt very overwhelmed. And I really went into myself of like, did I do something wrong? Was I not present enough? Was I not generous enough? Did I not give enough? Did I not listen enough? Was I enough? And it can like almost overthrow you to the point where you're actually not able to be present and make decisions for who is still present in the business and also hiring decisions because you may choose then to hire based off of solely your energetic vibe with someone or like, wow, I feel like we could be friends. We could get along. This is going to be so great and fun to work with them. And then you realize it's not actually fruitful or purposeful for the business. And being in that like boss leader mode, you do have to use a different filter to make decisions when it comes to your team and the way your business needs to operate to move forward. again, in the same way Sarah said, it doesn't mean you can't be intentional about culture. It doesn't mean you don't have to be vulnerable, or that you don't want people to feel like people and humans in your business, or that they can't be authentically themselves. There is, though, a framework. There is a container to which we hold that space in, though,
Mhm,
because you are here to also serve others in your community, especially if you're a service-based business. And anyone that comes into a place that is a service-based business and has a lot of employees in it, if there is something that feels off or funky with the energy, like, those clients can just tell it right away,
yeah,
right away. And you can have a really positive, fun, engaged, purposeful team and culture while still maintaining the overarching understanding and theme of what we're here to do.
mhm,
And so if you ever do feel like you've kind of blurred that space, it is okay to do as Sarah did and just say, we need to have a conversation. Like, I need to express some things. There are some changes moving forward. If it's a new year, if there's a different season, if you're running a different promo, like, if there's something that you can also kind of anchor some of that to, it can make the experience feel a little bit more outside of yourself compared to it being like a personal decision you made, which, again, if you do have very blurry boundaries, right? Like, then those team members and employees could also potentially take on the ownership of, like, they did something wrong or that they weren't present for it, but really it's just you continuing to develop your leadership skills in different seasons of your business and what your business is requiring for you to get to that next level. So I always think it can create more of a safe feeling for yourself in having some of these, like, harder, okay, no, we're going to create some different boundaries and stuff. Like, you can anchor into those kind of external factors to help guide or start the conversation to feel a little less personal and a little bit more, I don't know, again, for lack of better word, just external of your, like, outside of personal. Um, and I mean, I even had to do that in the fall. And I'm sure that as life goes on and we have three fully trained doctors, like, we'll be having a new conversation around what expectations look like as we are now all fully trained and ready to rock in a different season. But it's always, like, there's ties to continuing to move and flow through your business. So I think that would be one of my pieces of advice for if you're feeling brushed against this and are unsure how to even start to bring it up with your team or colleagues or even partners in your business.
mhm. The other aspect that I would also add would be when you're feeling the fatigue and the potential resentment, if there's any of those like anger, frustration type things coming up with this type of scenario, I would also do a temperature check. Are you giving yourself space to rest outside of your business? A lot of times, at least I know when I was in that, there was also this element that I felt resentful that I was doing so much work and my team wasn't. Or it's not like they weren't doing the work, but my level of expectation because I was the entrepreneur and I'm the business owner didn't line up with their expectation that they're just a W-2 employee and they're showing up to the job. They're doing their job really well, but my level of understanding around that was just a very different capacity and a different thermometer. And so it became something that I resented the fact that I had to do more and energetically I had to do more because I had to lead the team. And then in turn, I was also frustrated with myself because I had given away so much other things. So energetically, I was so exhausted. Emotionally, I was exhausted. And so it was kind of a full circle. It wasn't just like one facet, right? Like there were multiple different elements to it. And there was a season where I had to really learn what it was like to actually just rest and go home and not do more work, not just be on my phone or not just like sitting down on my computer and busting out new SOPs. Like I had to really learn what it was like to, when I rest, I get to do what I desire to do. Maybe that's in that. And sometimes when I say rest, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to sit and do absolutely nothing. That doesn't mean that you are just meditating for 10 hours. That's not what I'm saying. Rest means that you follow your heart in that moment of what you desire to do. So maybe that is that day that you feel like you're in a flow state and you want to work and you want to add to the life of your business. That can also be beautiful, beautiful energy that's going out, and that can be very restful and rejuvenating for you. Maybe that rest means that you literally do take a complete day where you go boating with your family or you go out and you're just enjoying a time with people that you love. Maybe that is something that you enjoy. Maybe that is something that you just go for a 20-minute walk and it's a way for you to disengage and just be out in nature and listen to the sounds of the birds, whatever. Maybe it is a time where you go swim, you do a workout, you eat different food, you go to a restaurant. I don't freaking know. But it's more or less like following your heart with what you want and you actually give your space to rest. I used to have a saying when I opened my business, like, I know how to work hard, but I'm learning how to rest better. And so it's like the reality of what it looks like to actually engage rest and know that life will function really, really beautiful and way more fulfilled when you are fulfilled and you have your cup really overflowing versus just tanked on empty, especially when we are dealing with emotions and boundaries with team. If you're not taking care of yourself, the rest of those are going to be on high alert all the time. So taking that opportunity and doing a temperature check on that, I think is a beautiful other little step in that little puzzle pieces at the same time.
We definitely recorded an episode about that. I think it's like finding joy again or like finding joy in your business again. So go back and listen to that too, because it is so true. Sarah hit the nail with the head of the hammer, hit the head of the nail with the hammer, whatever that expression is. She killed it with that little one because that is such an easy way for resentment to build up within yourself because you are the business owner. There literally is an endless amount of work to do. There's also probably an endless list of work that your employees can also do. And so when you are staying late to do those things, or you're going in early to do those things, or you're staying over lunch to do those things, not that those aren't purposeful, not that there aren't seasons for that, for things that we're looking to, help flow in our business. But if that's the rhythm of your every single day, we have both learned that it creates giant amounts of resentment, especially, I mean, God, there was a Marco Polo where I literally sent Sarah the other day because I was listening to hers and sending her one back. And I could hear my team all together in the back, like laughing, and they were just eating lunch. And I'm sitting in the front office, like doing stuff. And I was like, you could just see it on my face. I was like, yep, I'm definitely having an emotion right now where I'm like, look at these guys laughing and here I am doing work. And it's like, okay, but me doing work right now is a choice. So it's either I have to accept that I'm making this choice because I have some purpose to what I'm doing and intention to what I'm doing, or I need to get myself the fuck out of my office and just go do something else I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Go laugh myself. Go listen,
Yeah.
watch a funny show, listen to some music and dance. Go walk for 15 minutes in an antique store that I love to. It's okay to pour back into yourself sometimes and leave the extra 15, 30 minutes of work for another day because it will always be there.
100%.
So thank you for joining us on another episode of the Heartwork Podcast. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to lead with heart in your business and life.
If you enjoyed this, subscribe so you never miss a release, rate our show, leave us a review, get on our VIP email list, and join our exclusive Facebook group, The Heartwork Life, to plug into our community and learn from us and other heart-led entrepreneurs on a weekly basis.
We look forward to chatting with you next time.
Bye!